While the community shouldn't be surprised to see this Dutch monster behind a massive paywall, I do have an alternative option for you today, because I understand it does hurt when you see cool things like this, new features in the game, and you can't play them. I've been there. And for a lot of other video games besides wowsl, of which I am a community contributor, and yes, I do get a certain amount of things for free, every other game in the world that I play, there are paywalls. And sometimes it just doesn't feel good to not be able to partake. So yes, the Golden Lion is really good, but surprise, surprise, so is the rest of the line. And the Johan de Witt, I want to show it off today, and we are actually going to fail div into LT because I want to show you that you can play this ship, the tier 8 version of Golden Lion, and have just as much fun, if not more. And guess what? It's free. The Johan de Witt is in early access right now, so you can get it in a crate if you're lucky, but at the end of this update, it will be free, and then you can play it all day, baby, and it doesn't cost you $150. So if you're not familiar yet, the Dutch cruisers at higher tiers, they are super stealthy, they are super tanky, low DPM, heavy cruisers with airstrikes. And let's actually go look at those first. This is a cool feature that they added this time around. Look at that. Armor piercing 36 millimeters. It means it's possible to actually share these little details with us, the player base, without us having to go and ask community managers. So maybe someone should get to typing back there, start adding it to all of the other shells and other things in the games, like the airstrikes, you know, the Lexington, Pobeda, what do their bombs pin? Like, why do I have to go to Discord and ask that kind of stuff? Anyways, small development team. Yeah. All right. So our initial build on the bigger cruisers, because apologies, I did not play anything below tier 8. I did play against the Harlem, and it's also very strong. But yeah, here's our initial build. I would absolutely buff the dispersion here in slot 1 on these bigger cruisers because they have battle cruiser dispersion, not cruiser dispersion. It means they're inaccurate. The shells are going to be kind of irregular. They're not going to be accurate. And then beyond that, propulsion and concealment, of course. Our commander, Johan Furstner, and this is the guy that you get in the calendar, I do believe, and he is much, much better than Carl or Carol Dorman. Carl, let's go with Carl. Johan Furstner here is much, much better, so I would highly recommend getting him. This skill here, the base trait, is very strong. Like, you might not think it is, and I didn't do the calculations on, 7% of a fire does this much more damage, blah, blah, blah. But I will say that it is significant. So your fire damage is going to be increased from cruiser shells or bombs. With that in mind, I went with Burn It Down XXL here in slot 1, but there is the option for Agile Seagull. I didn't think the turret traverse was that big of an issue, nor the rudder shift, because really these can be very stationary ships most of the time. You can kite with them and play in open water with the concealment, sure, but I really just wanted the increased fire chance. And you could make a point for it here too to get another 3%. But we went with this, so I think if you have a 13.5 kilometer aircraft attack range, this might increase it maybe half a kilometer. So it's not super, super helpful, but anyways, we did go with that. You could also use this. Now, this skill here, Risk Theory, is absolutely incredible. You get 3% off of your total detectability, and then your cruiser detectability time after firing the main batteries drops 30%. So you disappear more quickly after you fire your guns. Normally you have 20 seconds where your gun range bloom is going to increase your detectability. Now with this 30%, we coupled it with Ivan BD Lightful to get another 10%. So I think we disappear in like 14 seconds every time we fire our guns. Yeah, so it is very, very strong, and it is super annoying to play against. And on top of that, we went with Makawa, and it's going to bring our Johan concealment down to 9.5, which is absolutely crazy. These are the most toxic boats in the game now, for sure. Fixated? I would honestly probably recommend Fixated over this. It's tough though. The only reason I went with this is because you have an RPF tracker like Twist and Track, and it shows you the direction of the nearest ship, and that is really, really valuable. So that is the only reason I went with this. Who cares about your aircraft HP? Like, you can watch, even with full DFAA on, DFAA on, yeah, most of the airplanes are still going to get through. On Johan de Witt, you have 10 planes. On the Golden Lion, you have 12. So most of your munitions are getting through, and I really wouldn't worry about this aircraft HP. But the accuracy is bad enough on the main guns that fixated could be helpful. And in the last slot, always usually recommend fully packed on cruisers above tier 7 just because of the heal, sonar, radar, whatever consumable you have. It's useful to get more of them, but this is super useful. So you're going to get your aircraft back faster to attack, and if you are close to an enemy ship, every other airstrike cooldown only takes 1 second, and I will show you exactly how that works. It is very powerful if you're getting pushed or you're in a sticky situation. This could be the difference between life and death, or, you know, another 10-20,000 damage. That brings us to the statistics of the ship. So they're pretty survivable. They have big HP pools. Here's your aircraft. They come in very fast. You have large squadron sizes and you drop a ton of munitions. I would point out the Johan de Witt only pins 36 millimeters of armor, and the Golden Lion pins 37. It's really not that big of a threshold. If it were 38, that would be significant because that would get you through the decks of ships like the Montana at Legendary tier. But for all intensive purposes, the Johan and the Golden Lion are very similar. Johan has smaller guns. They're 240 millimeters, where the Golden Lion actually has Scharnhorst guns. Now, I feel like the Johan de Witt is more accurate than the Golden Lion. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. It might just be all in my head. But these smaller guns, they feel more accurate. You have long reloads, but the shells are powerful, and the AP is definitely usable. AA defense, supposedly high. I didn't do all of the calculations. Most of the DPM there is at 3.5 kilometers, not the 5.2, so maybe not the most powerful AA boats. You do get DFAA consumables, which that is nice. The other thing that the Johan has over the Golden Lion is she's much more maneuverable, a smaller turning circle and a shorter rudder shift time. Also more concealed. We have 9.5 conceal here, and on the Golden Lion, I think it's 9.7. The Lion is going to have a little bit more armor, but it's really not that much more, and these ships are pretty tanky if you get past this, the 25 millimeter plating. Sure, enemies who know where to shoot can overmatch that, but honestly, you have a pretty good icebreaker. You have good deck armor, 30 millimeters. You have a good beefy armor belt here and a turtleback armor scheme. Let's see if I can get the correct thing up here to show you that. So at close ranges, it's hard to Citadel this thing. Like, these things are very resilient cruisers. Like, just forget about the 25 millimeter bow. They're pretty strong. Maybe don't show your aft to anyone here on the Johan de Witt, but overall, very tanky ships, and you couple that with the big HP pools and the concealment, and these things are so hard to kill. And for those who care, and I'm not sure if people really care about this, but here are the battle stats at the beginning. The damage. Average damage per battle on these ships has been incredibly high for me, 130,000 at tier 8. That is pretty darn good, and the XP is okay here. And we can also go look at the Golden Lion. I had a terrible losing streak on this ship, but once again, look at the damage, 141,000, and the XP for all of those losses is still pretty strong. This is just a way of saying that these ships are very powerful. That's going to bring us right to game number 1, and this is a bit of a weird double feature. In game 1, we're going to show off the tier 8 Johan de Witt, and game 2, show off the Golden Lion. Now, you may have noticed I have not tried to do its Dutch pronunciation yet, and that's very calculated. Dutch is hard, okay? But Johan de Witt, at least that's simple enough for me here. I brought some division mates, of course, because we wanted to fail div this boat for a couple reasons, but the big reason was I don't want people to have FOMO with the Golden Lion. I know the community gets really upset by these paywalls, and I get it. As I explained in the opening of this video, paywalls in video games, It sucks, okay? It sucks, yeah. And I'm not gonna give the whole speech about how it keeps the lights on at Wargaming, but it does. Anyways, the point of this video is to show you can grind your way up to this tier 8 for free and have a ball, have a blast. Do I recommend you fail div it all the time? No, but it is strong enough that if you have good division mates like we have here, then you can have a lot of fun. Now, speaking of my division mates, these are two of my favorite British people in the world. At least they're like top 100, I suppose. Like, I don't know, Queenie, Winston Churchill, Ghazi, and Sank. Pretty good British guys. And one of our British friends is in trouble over there in the daring, and I'm going to completely whiff a salvo. A swing and a miss at 9 kilometers, and that wasn't the accuracy of Johan de Witt, that was me missing. And when you're the support cruiser for your DD, you really can't miss those shots. The second one, we connect 5 shells. So yeah, the Johan de Witt, I do feel like she's more accurate than the Golden Lion. Golden Lion really will troll you. It feels like sailing around Scharnhorst, honestly, which kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Same guns. At least how I understand it. I think Prince Blip said that whatever theoretical situation about these ships, that the Dutch would have had a license to build the German guns or something like that. Anyways, you'll notice we're going to shoot HE most of the time, and one, that's a Petropavlovsk. It's like a floating anvil. You might as well shoot HE, but we're going to try to abuse the fire chance. So again, on this build, every fire that we set is going to deal more damage, and I think it is that if we are unspotted, we deal additional damage if our fire continues to burn. Unfortunately for this Petro, he's going to do some bad damage cons. I think this time here, he damage conned a single fire, and I think we're going to catch him doing the same mistake a little later on. When you're around these Dutch cruisers, especially if you're in a battleship, you can't do that. Do not damage con a single fire. In fact, I would say let a double fire burn, you know, until you can get out of their airstrike range. Like, there's going to be a learning curve to playing with and playing against these cruisers, and that is one of them right there. Be very careful about your damage cons. Just assume that any Haarlem, Johan de Witt, D7P, Golden Lion, that they're going to have 2 airstrikes waiting. And that is one of my main strategies. I think I talked about it on the D7P video way back when, and that is to build up your airstrikes. So D7P actually gets 3, and all these other big cruisers up here, they get 2. But save them and catch players slipping who waste their damage cons. And if your first airstrike doesn't hit or set a fire, your second one probably will. So that is a good strategy on the Dutch cruisers, and if you're playing against them, just know that players are going to do that, and they will do that to you. So yeah, don't waste your damage cons. And here is a prime example of what to do here. Also, apologies for us entering and exiting the chat. Something happened with Discord, so our voice chat at this point wasn't working, and everything kind of sounded like, I don't know, some sort of robot or something, so we're trying to fix it. So I hope that's not too distracting. So we dropped 1 airstrike on Petro. I think we didn't get the fire that we wanted, but we're going to follow up with the HE shells. There's a fire, and then, yeah, see, he damage conned a single fire yet again. Highly wouldn't recommend that. So we're going to follow up with an airstrike and make sure we get a permanent fire and hopefully get him out of the match. I think there's a Montana way back over there at the edge that is going to take some pot shots at us. And this game is honestly looking pretty good, but don't let that fool you. We're going to get close to, oh, I won't say 200K. I think we get like 160 or 170,000 in this game. So these ships, like, I know the community is probably going to be kind of upset. It seems like, you know, anytime a new aircraft mechanic comes to the game, there are going to be those that don't like it, just like the US hybrids. And I get it, but I also kind of disagree. I like it. It's something new. And I like the US hybrids as well, for the record. It changes the game mechanics, it gives you something different to focus on, and for people like me who have been around World of Warships since the beginning, even WoW's PC, what was that, 2017? it's good to have something new and different, you know, a different game mechanic. So personally, I'm happy. I like it. I think they're a lot of fun. They are difficult to play against, but as you can see here, there's a golden lion right over here bullying us, and we're doing just fine. You just have to keep maneuvering, you know, reverse, stop, go forward, rudder to the right and the left. The players who are static players or like to sail in straight lines, those are going to be the ones that get punished. 12,000 HP, it's not looking very good for us, but once again, these things are so hard to kill, it seems like, and, you know, having played against them too quite a bit now at this point, they are so hard to kill, but we're going to use our stealth and just kind of stay in this little nook and cranny here, and I don't think we're going to get spotted for the next couple minutes as we rack up quite a bit of damage. We're at 44,000 now. Let's check back in on that in about 60 seconds and see where we're at. Vermont, I don't think we get a lot of penetrations on his deck. I can't really remember. I think Vermont's pretty heavily armored. Let's peep this airstrike and see here. 5 shatters, 3 pins, but you know, when you get 3 fires, it doesn't matter. So once again, people misusing damage cons comes back to haunt them. And speaking of, the Montana DC'd 1 fire, and so we're going to go ahead and try to follow up and get the permanent here as well. I will say these ships punish campers, people who like to sit and hide behind islands. You can't hide from aircraft. So really, if you're a battleship main, I would try to maneuver as much as you can. Or if you were the Vermont, perhaps just give the Johan de Witt a wide berth and the Golden Lion, because you're not going to be able to avoid any airstrikes. I think these airstrikes are much easier to use than D7P. The Provincian airstrikes were really difficult. I think most of the success I ever had with D7P was against battleships and or carriers, but the Johan de Witt here, like, you can hit maneuvering ships, you can hit cruisers. It is much more forgiving and easy to use, in my opinion. Now, since the reticle is bigger, the bombs fall a little farther apart, so I think their usefulness against destroyers, I don't know how useful they are. Like, I think a lot of the bombs can actually miss, but I've also seen them get pretty good hits on DDs, so yeah, we'll have to see. We avoid the Golden Lion's airstrike there. I'm assuming he has another one, but we'll have to see here. Mostly I'm worried about the Montana coming around the corner over there on A side and blapping us, so we're kind of turning in to angle against that. Since we loaded AP, we're going to go ahead and shoot for his guns. The guns, you know, like German guns, they seem to be easily knocked out, so if you use armor-piercing shells and aim for them, you can have pretty good success in taking them out. And, you know, having played Johan and Golden Lion a bit now, you lose your guns a lot in these ships. So yeah. Strong. The concealment, like having a 9.5 concealment on a ship like this is kind of crazy. And, you know, being able to drop spot just as quickly, not having to wait 20 seconds to drop spot, it is super, super toxic. And I will show you in the next game how you can abuse it. Will these ships need to be nerfed or balanced a little bit? I don't know. I feel like I'm a little out of touch with the game, you know, and knowing if that's something that needs to be done. But I will say my average damage and, yeah, just my average damage on both of these ships is much higher than most other cruisers. It doesn't mean you're going to win lots of games. Like, again, the Golden Lion, my win stats were pretty bad over there. But, yeah, very strong ships. Now, speaking of which, you're going to see the turtleback armor scheme at work here. With the turtleback scheme, usually at close ranges like this, you won't be able to get citadels. And we're going to try to go for the drive-by here. And a little tip, unselect the enemy ship. Like, you don't want to be targeting them because it will make your guns harder to fire. So we fired the guns a little too early there, and we got 5 bounces. So that's on me. But what I would say is just deselect the ship as you go to drive by them, and then you can manually aim your guns, and, you know, it won't keep messing up your aim. We got saved by our teammates for sure, otherwise that guy would have killed us, and I honestly deserve to die after messing up the drive-by and shooting too early. But now I can show you guys the legendary perk here on Mr. Firstner. So we're obviously within 9 kilometers of this Montana, so there's one airstrike. we can launch our next one right about now. And then every other airstrike reloads in 1 second if you are that close to an enemy, so we actually have a third one. Now, you'll notice we're not really dealing a lot of damage because Montana has a 38mm deck and we're really just shattering. So it's all about the fires at this point. Yeah. So certain ships like the, I've gotten some crazy drops. I think I had a 24k drop on a Prince Rupert. So like the German battle cruisers or super lightly armored ships, you can deal a ton of damage with these airstrikes for sure. But heavily armored battleships like Montana, it's just going to come down to the fire chance. The gun performance, again, I swear the Johan de Witt is just a little bit more accurate, but the guns aren't all that great. You're not going to want to rely on them solely. It's going to be a mix of the guns and the airstrikes and setting fires that last. That's how you're going to get the most of your damage. Again, mostly HE. I think I could have switched to the AP on the Vermont a couple times, but yeah, mostly HE, just trying to farm fire. So there is our first result in the Johan de Witt, which again is just a phenomenal cruiser, and you can get her for free. So I would absolutely recommend it. Don't feel like you're missing out on the Golden Lion at all. And if I didn't already say, Golden Lion will be returning in a year for free. They didn't say how. It might be Global XP, it might be a Bureau ship, but if you can wait a year, kind of like the Louisiana had 1 year of exclusivity, so that will be the same for the Golden Lion, and she'll come back in 2026 at some point. Who knows? Could be November 2026. But still, yeah, don't have FOMO. She'll come back, or just play the Johan de Witt. Now this game is going to show just how strong the concealment is on these ships, because we have a good open water map out here to play on, and yes, when you have a 9.7 kilometer concealment and you disappear every 14 seconds after firing your guns, it gets super toxic. It kind of reminds me of playing Azuma or Yoshino back in the day, because those were ships where you were kind of able to do that. As our Shimakaze suicides right into a Wusta. Oh, brother. This match is definitely going to be a tough one, a hard fight, but we are going to put up a lot of damage, and it's going to be very interesting to watch. But yes, on this side we have a Colombo, a Holland, and a Wusta who is going to play it exceptionally well. Now there are certain ships that can counter these Dutch cruisers really good. The Worcester is one of them. It has just enough armor to shrug off all of the AP if the Worcester angles. It's maneuverable enough to dodge the airstrikes. It has AA to shoot your planes down. Now Worcester is going to go a little bit broadside here, and you can see what I mean about the Golden Lion's dispersion. We're going to have several opportunities to shoot at this broadside Wusta, and really, well, you'll just see. But you can also see that he triple fired us, and that is another downside of these big Dutch cruisers. They burn and flood like battleships, I am pretty sure. At least they burn like battleships for longer duration, so you do have to be careful of that. Destroyer players, they need to do everything they can to counter these Dutch cruisers, because if that Holland wasn't here right now, I could already go dark and go unspotted. Well, we kind of did already, but if he had stayed up here aggressively and kept us spotted, then they could have shot me over there, and that's what you should do if you're a destroyer player. Just remember that these Dutch cruisers are really concealed, and do everything you can to keep them spotted for the enemy, because if they're allowed to stay over here, you know, 10, 11, 12 kilometers outside of your friendly ship's range, they're never going to be spotted unless they want to be spotted. They're just too stealthy. So yes, certain ships can help counter them, and then also, you know, switch to HE, set them on fire. Looks like we are going to take a Holland Torp here, but luckily it's not going to deal a lot of damage. I think we have a 19% torpedo reduction, so a decent amount for a cruiser, and we are trying to set the permanent fire here on the Colombo. This was a pretty big update, and honestly, aside from the Dutch cruisers, I haven't really got to play much of anything else. These have just been so fun. Honestly, I thought that I would enjoy the Vampire 2 more than I did, and you guys can check out that full review here on the channel as well. I'm not going to say it's better than the Daring. I think it's a lot harder to play than the Daring, but if you really enjoyed gunboats, then that could be a campaign ship for you to check out. So definitely go check that video out if you guys are interested. It is a good ship, and I'm happy to see a legendary campaign that's not for Christmas. I think we've only had a couple, the Minotaur and the Brisbane. So it is cool. I feel like it's a pretty good value for 2,500 doubloons, the Admiralty backing, which is really one of the only things that I recommend people actually purchase in this game with their own money. Some of the commanders as well, which brings me to the Azur Lane commanders. The new ones I haven't taken a look at, so I would be curious what you guys think. Are they any good? Are they worth copying or dropping? Some of the Azur Lane collab commanders in years past have been the best. Like, definitely get them. Azur Lane, New Jersey comes to mind, like as an American battleship captain, and just some of the other ones, they have been very, very good. So I'm curious about this Azur Lane collab, and I will check it out as soon as I'm done playing the Dutch cruisers, but they're just too fun right now. As you can see, this game is really not going good. Our Shimakaze did torp their Shima, which is always fun to see on the boards that pop up. I wish I could have witnessed it in person, but we also lost another 2 ships. So really, this game is going to be an uphill battle, and we are just going to farm as much damage as we possibly can. The Temeraire is sailing in here, so let's see if we can light a permanent fire and hit him with the airstrike. We only connected 2 bombs, so I don't know if he was maneuvering or if I'm just not very good at the airstrikes. You can definitely dodge them if you are paying attention, but what I find happening is you get kind of distracted by everything going on in the battle, and you just completely miss it. Now we've loaded the AP here, and we really, really need to kill the Wusta if we want to try to save our last destroyer over here between A and B. So we're hoping for citadels here, and we're going to put this airstrike in a way that hopefully will force him not to bow tank me and turn towards our destroyer. That is a tactic you can kind of use, and this booster has a lot of kills. Oh my gosh, what is that, 3,000 kills? I can't imagine. I've never played one ship so much. I kind of like the variety of switching ships. I mean, there's like 540 ships in the game. Anyways, the Worcester survived, but he did what he needed to do. He forced our destroyers out of the cap. He killed one of them, I believe, and honestly, that's probably going to be the nail in the coffin for the rest of this battle. I'm just not going to be able to hunt them all down and, kill all of the enemy ships. Let's try to get lucky with an airstrike here as he is sailing away. And we should have loaded HE for the Holland without a doubt. But unfortunately, they're going to kill our Shimakaze, and that really is the end. You can see against battleship salvos, even the Yamato salvos, you can do pretty good in tanking damage. Now, I will say if they know where to shoot kind of at the bow, they can definitely chunk you. Ohio's, I have been chunked and citadeled pretty hard. And again, Yamatos who are aiming more for the bow and not at that upper belt armor, which I think is 40 millimeters, and it actually is like a big middle finger to Yamato and Musashi cells. So yes, these ships are super, super resilient, and the really toxic part of the battle is about to come up. And it's no one's fault. I mean, the battle's already over, so the Yamato might as well sail into me and try to get some damage. I mean, what else is there to do? They're going to win. It doesn't matter. The Worcester's smart enough that he's going to sail away and hide. So is the Holland. So for all intents and purposes, this battle is over. So I don't fault the Yamato here, but we're definitely going to bully him with the old 1-2 punch here, setting a fire with the HE shells and then following up with bombs. And again, going dark, because when you go dark with this commander, then your fires deal even more damage. We're hunting for the Worcester here. I was hoping that he would come back around, but anyone who is Chadley enough to have played that ship for 3,000 battles knows what they're doing, and so he's going to sail away and make for sure that his team wins this one. Yamato, I think he actually dodges some of this. Never mind. No, he didn't. That was 12 bomb hits. Never mind. But he did damage con, so we're going to follow up with the HE salvos, and that is really how you get the most damage out of these ships. And this was my highest damage game, I believe, out of 12 battles that I played. Pretty unlucky there with the first salvo. Let's follow up with another one and see what we can do here. The gun angles kiting, they're really not bad, and I found them to be about the same on the Johan. So in situations like this, you know, it's not bad. You can keep all of your guns on target. I would say most of the time I found myself closer to caps behind an island. That way you could get the airstrikes farther across the map. And if you're in the middle of the map by B, and you can airstrike both sides of the map where people aren't expecting it, then you can, you know, get into some really powerful positions and have a big battle impact. So we got the double permanent fire on Yamato, and there's nothing he can really do about it since he already damage conned the first double fire. Yeah, like I won't get spotted unless I fire my guns. I thought he was going to go forward here, so we tried to get another airstrike off, but you can see just how much fire damage the Yamato is taking from those two fires, and that is why I feel like these ships are toxic, and honestly, I fired here hoping he would just kill me, put me out of my misery. And because I deserve it, I feel bad for, like, you know, the double fires and letting them burn like that. I don't know what build this Yamato has, but his ship is really not that accurate at all. But yes, highly toxic. I would almost like to see the concealment not be so good on these ships, but I know it's their gimmick, and I don't know that, you know, they're going to do anything about that. The balancing department, we'll have to see what happens. If I remember right, the US hybrids, when they came to the game, they were all super, super strong, and I think a lot of us said that at the beginning. Louisiana ended up staying in her original state, and every single other hybrid was nerfed. Part of me wonders if we'll kind of see the same situation, if Johan de Witt and Haarlem are performing very well, if they might get some sort of balancing and the Golden Lion be exempt from that. We fast forwarded it a little bit in the game. It is going to be a loss, but we're going to go ahead and put up as much damage as we can. We get a beautiful airstrike on the Colombo, and he goes ahead and smokes up. Really, though, there's not much else we can do here. Just try to kill as many ships as we can and have as much fun as we can. The Holland sailed right into me. That is unfortunate, and we actually connect 5 shells, which seems surprising, you know, with as inaccurate as this ship feels to me. That is why I actually used Ivan. No, that is not. At one point, I used that new French commander. She might be an Azerlane one, but she buffs your dispersion, I believe. And I think I tested her out. She buffs dispersion and reload. But I ended up with Ivan B. Lightful here because you get some reload along with disappearing a little bit faster. Colombo is going to burn out there. Now it's a 2v2 situation, and I've already kind of ruined it that we're going to lose. The Wooster was too smart for us, and then there's Shimakaze on the other side of the map, played a really, really good match, and he might have been the one that killed our 2 battleships early on. I am unsure. But really, that is going to wrap it up for this one. We get a cheeky shot on the Shima here, and I think we also hit him with an airdrop. But really, that's about it for this one. I am curious what you guys think about these ships. Do you think they're strong? Do you think they're too strong? Or what would you like to see happen with them? And I'm also curious what you guys think about the Azerlane collab. Tell me what commanders I should be checking out first, because, well, I've only got so much time, and I hope to get to it next week or the week after. But yeah, that is going to wrap it up for this one. This is Derka signing off. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.